to another edition of the Coaching Hour podcast. I'm Paul Rotherham. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this, and it's brought to you in partnership with Coaches Network South Africa. Lovely to have you with us. Remember, if you are watching our live stream right now, you can feel free to interact with us, post your questions as they come up, and we'll gladly see if we can have those questions answered during today's show. Lovely to have you here. I'm joined, of course, once again by Mary and Mareka. Hello, ladies. Lovely to have you here.
Hi, Paul.
How's it, Mareka? And Mary, who
Good.
is sitting on a tropical island where there's a bit of a breeze. We're jealous. Lovely backdrop, Mary. Mareka,
That's
today's
not a
guest, we were
backdrop.
chatting.
That's my
You're
garden.
joking.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. It's your garden. Fantastic. Okay. Well, you have a lovely garden. Please do not be washed out to sea while we're doing this show. Thank you, Mary. We've been having a lovely chat with today's guest because he and I share a common interest or passion, should I say, and that is ultramarathon running. So we've been having a little bit of a catch up, but there is a more serious side for us inviting Niel to join us today. And Mareka, I'll leave the introduction up to you.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, it's a privilege for us to have Niel Thiart as our guest today. He's a coach of and also author of the book Fit to the Palace and founder of Reflection Coaching. Welcome, Niel. It's so lovely to have you.
Thank you very much. Fantastic to meet you guys and having the opportunity to have a discussion with you.
Great, thank you. So before we get into our topic, because we would love to get, to know what the book is all about and how you got, on that journey. But as a coach, just tell us a bit more about Niel and how did you get onto this journey as being a coach and an author at the end of the day.
Fantastic. Thanks for giving me that opportunity. Yeah, look, coaching and working with people has been a lifelong desire of mine. However, never really identified myself as a coach. So went to the normal corporate environments, worked various different industries, but took the time in observing how people lead and how people manage. I specifically say those two or those two titles in the sentence because it's two different worlds. And through my life journey in the corporate environment, I've seen quite a couple of pitfalls, areas that people take for granted and it's normal behavior and everybody just accepts it. And nobody really take note of the damage it's caused sometimes, or the legacies that they leave behind. And in 2024, I was at the final stages. I had cancer, diagnosed with cancer, and it really made me look very hard at life and what my biggest dream was from a very young age. I then just made a decision that if time is little and I only have this much time left in life, then I need to do what I've always wanted to do. And that's when I embarked on the journey of becoming an executive coach. And then at the same time, I said for 30 years, I had this dream, which became a vision, to write the book about Joseph's journey and how that influenced leadership, how much we can learn from that journey as leaders. Then I embarked on that journey, and ever since then, it's just been a roller coaster. So yeah, but it's been a very, very deeply rooted, embedded passion and desire of mine for many, many years.
Yes. Oh, wow. So it is a 30-year dream to write this book because I'm sure everybody that writes a book doesn't just get up in the morning and say, oh, today I'm going to write,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an interesting title, Fit to the Palace. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, look, first of all, it is book one of a series of 12 that I'm aiming in writing. I draw insight and wisdom from biblical leaders. And specifically why I started with Joseph, because it was a reflection of my life in so many ways that I wasn't fortunate to have, and it might sound a little bit, I don't know how to put it, but I didn't have all the opportunities that I probably would have wanted to have. And I really had to dig deep myself. Had great support from my parents, but I had to walk a hard road to get to where I am. Most of my knowledge and experience, in fact, I would say 80% of it has come from really trying things, making mistakes, failing, getting up, persevering, enduring, consistently reflecting on what have I done? How could I have done it differently? Who have I affected with this? How can I use what I've learned to help others? So yeah, it's that's basically, how can I put it in a nutshell, why I wrote it. Because Joseph's story was the same. You know, he was sold as a slave, falsely accused, thrown in jail, forgotten in jail, and but never lost focus of his vision. And that's why I am I also wrote this, because I never lost my vision. It always been there. But life happens, and that little flame dims a little bit, and then you have a life-changing event that happens in your life, and then all of a sudden it's like now or never. So yeah, and the next one that's coming through is Fire in Lions, which is based on Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which is faithful and courageous leadership.
Niel, you mentioned something interesting there, and that is that you have a life-changing event. It's a question that I think we have put to many guests on this podcast, and that is, does change actually require something as severe and as serious as a life-changing event, in your opinion?
In my opinion, no. It doesn't. It's helpful. It could be a good catalyst, but I think change can come at any time based on your frame of mind, your attitude, your belief. So yes, um, it's a 50-50 in my opinion. I know people that has made life-changing changes in their lives based on a choice they made there and then, and it wasn't because of something that happened in their lives. Sometimes you just need a little push, and that's what happened to me.
If I may ask, oh,
Sorry.
I just wanted to ask very briefly, how old were you when this happened? Because as someone in their early 50s, as I am now, and my wife, she won't mind me sharing this, she's just turned 50. We're both finding that at our life stage now, we are starting to experience changes in thinking, obviously physical changes, particularly for ladies at this time of life, which can be interesting in itself. But
Yeah.
is there somehow an age factor, do you think, here?
You know, Paul, it's quite funny. Once again, I'm going to say no. It depends on your experience. But I mean, my changes also happened when I was 53. My life change was at 53. Um, and But once again, events can happen to you, anything can happen to you. You can listen to a conversation that somebody has with somebody else at the airport at the age of 32, and somebody could just ask a question or say something that makes you think and could bring change. That's why it's so important, and I say it to a lot of people, is be mindful of what you say, who you say it, and how you say it. The person that you're talking to might not quite take it to heart, but another person that could be overhearing that conversation, you could be a catalyst in a massive change in their lives. So the way you present and you carry yourself need to be consistently with one focus, and that is to leave a legacy behind. Whether the person knows you or don't know you. I'm going to use an example. I listened to a conversation many years ago in a Mug and Bean in Pietermaritzburg, and don't know the person from a bar of soap, but the words was never invest yourself in people. And it's because he had a bad relationship with someone, because you will always be let down. And for years, I had that in the back of my mind. So I kind of shut people out because I was fearful of investing in the wrong people. So those words had a negative effect on me. So it's not an age thing, although yes, age does bring it. You start asking serious questions. You ask financial questions. You ask the relationship questions. You ask questions about your children. You ask questions and reflect on retirement coming up, on property investments. Those kind of things become daunting, and that's when a lot of changes happen. But changes can happen at any given time.
Paul, so that question that you asked Neil about, do you have to have a hard knock to wake up? Can I answer that from my perspective?
Absolutely.
Oh.
So, because I've had a few hard knocks in my life to change. And when I look back, I think it's because of fear.
Mm.
You know, because it's always there in the back of your mind to do, but you brush it aside because you have fear that it won't work, or a fear that it's going to cause you harm, or it's a lot of fears. So you put it in the back burner. That's what I did. I always buried things because I was scared to face it.
Can I have to agree with you 100%, because I mean, it's you. I never thought, first of all, that I could write a book. So that was, it was a fear of failing. And how people would see me and perceive me, what they'll say, am I talking nonsense? Is it truthful? Is it open? Is it honest? Those kind of questions. Then I also had a fear of speaking in front of people. Although a lot of people, friends and family members, used to say, I need to pursue it because the content of what I speak about comes naturally and flows naturally, and it makes an impact. But I still had a fear of doing that. I mean, these are things that I have learned and heard and thought about in my 20s. But again, it took me 30 years to overcome that fear. And it is definitely, fear is a massive thing. I wrote an article earlier this week and I'm going to come back to leadership. And that is that the question that I posed was, are leaders born or are they cultivated? And it's very much the same thing. You overcome fear by consistently growing and studying and being inquisitive. You're never going to overcome your fear by telling yourself, I'm fearful, and then you walk away. It's the same with comrades that we spoke about just now. You have respect for the race, but if you're going to be too fearful, you are going to lose focus and concentration. You're not going to plan properly. You're not going to strategize properly. And it's exactly the same. Life, leadership, and how we live it is the same as running an ultra marathon. It's planned, it's strategized, it's each day consistently showing up, getting up, putting on those shoes, go out there, ask questions, learn, reflect. Next day, same thing, over and over. And that brings growth. And also align yourself with the correct people. Because if you've got the right friends, colleagues around you in your circle, those are the kind of guys that's going to help you overcome that fear. It's the guys in the running club. Oh, I signed up for comrades and I'm not sure. No, man, we've been doing it for 6 months now. You've got 700 kilometers on your legs. You're good. No, but I'm not. It's exactly the same. It's important for people in business or just in life in general. I call it the hand of five. I've got 5 amazing friends that is in very high positions in the corporate world, and we've been friends for 20 years. And some of them said, thank goodness it took us 25 years to get you here to where you are now. But it is crucial to surround yourselves with the right people to help you overcome that fear.
Very true. Neil, coming back to the book, Why did you choose Joseph's story and how did you connect that to leadership? Because ultimately it's a leadership book, right?
Yeah. Joseph, one thing about Joseph that stands out is that he had a dream, he had a vision, and he never gave up on it. He consistently reminded of himself and stayed faithful in his vision. Even in when he was in a slave to Potiphar, he was accused, wrongfully accused, and put into jail. He was wrongfully accused because he consistently remained pure in who he is. So purity in business
Mm.
is crucial. That honesty, when nobody else is looking, well, what are you doing? And he was steadfast that he was not going to bend. He remained passionate about what his vision was. He consistently pursued it in a very gentle way. And he prioritized people around him. In jail, he was helping people. Eventually, he was putting second in charge in jail, although he was a prisoner. He helped develop a fellow prisoner that eventually went out, and Joseph thought that he forgot about him. But at the most crucial time, he reached out to him when there was a dream to be interpreted, and then he found himself in the palace. And through all of this, he still remained focused and humble. Even when he was reunited with his family, he was deeply moved. He had all the power in the world to come down on them with a wrath that you cannot imagine. But he reconciled, and his words to them is, what you did to me has brought us to this point. It wasn't about me, it was about making a difference. And that's a legacy that he left behind. So in my book, I talk about the 4 P's in chapter 2, which is passion,
Yes.
purity, priority, and pursuit, and how those 4 pillars become fundamental in leadership. And he actually showed that throughout his entire life. So, and I just felt that if you can lead in that way, what a difference can we make in this world that we live in? You know, there's so many people that hold grudges and, being vindictive and being dishonest, and they're in high leadership positions, making the wrong decisions, not involving other people's in decision making. The way they speak to people and communicate and handle and solve problems, it's mind blowing. It's and then what we want to do, today's leadership, everybody wants to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's here to stay. Okay? Change the mags, change your attitude, change your approach. And just because you find yourself in the leadership position, you think you can be dominating, aggressive, and hard. That is not leadership. Leadership is, like Simon Shank says, it's being in control of the people. It's developing, leading, building up, motivating, training, developing, making them better than what they were when they joined you. When I married my wife, I said in my speech that I will return my wife back to God in a better state than what I found her. And I think a lot of leaders miss that. You're accountable for those people in your care.
I
So
think
it's important.
in keeping with that, Niel, you mentioned the 4 P's. I think now would be a good time to just dive into that briefly, the 4 P's that are in your book. And you mentioned them very briefly a few minutes ago. I didn't catch all of them. Could you take us through those?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with purity. Purity is the manner in which you conduct yourself. How you, when you make decisions, how it affects not just your business, not just your people, but your consumers as well. So, people deal with people. And would you ever deal with an inconsistent, unethical company? Never. So the impact of that is massive in commerce and capital employed. That is heavily affected. Passion, I think it speaks for itself. Be passionate about what you do as a leader. It's not just the paycheck. It's not just the title. It is not just the persona. It becomes a heartbeat of who you are. When you walk into a motor vehicle dealership and you deal with two salespeople selling a car, and you're in the premium brand, and the one guy just talks to you like, and then you're capital employed. And
Neil,
yeah.
we just lost you there for a few seconds,
Oh my
just
goodness.
off the passion.
Sorry, I do apologize. Passion. Yeah, look, passion is a life-changing journey in leadership. It's as a leader, your passion becomes the beacon in how your teams, your organization follows. And passion goes together with your vision. Because your passion should drive your vision. When your passion drives your vision, your teams and your organization starts driving with you and have the same passion. And that creates longevity within your organization and a reduction on loss of capital employed. You have people staying around longer, more loyalty. Pursuit is pursuit of knowledge, pursuit of growth, pursuit of development, fundamental in organization. Once again, and I don't want to generalize people going into leadership positions and they are driving their title with passion. They do what they need to do, but they're not quite pursuing developing those that's in their care. Now, in the book, I also talk about legacy building. It becomes crucial in that. I mean, I know of people I can give you by name that I've worked with for 30 years that has left such an amazing impact on my life. And all they did, they were humble and they were pursuing with passion and ethics to grow and develop capital employed, if I can use that, to have a longevity and a consistent growth within the organization. There was no up and down emotional fluctuations consistently, nobody knowing what's going on. It brings that whole calmness into the organization. So we've done purity, passion, pursue, and then priority. I mean, all of us grew up and our parents said, you must get your priorities straight. In organizations, leadership, you need to get your priorities straight. What is? Yes, it is an organization. It is a business. It's in business to make money. So yes, that part is crucial. But what is your most important, your most valuable asset in your organization? Is your human capital employed. So prioritizing your human capital employed by maintaining a consistent emotional intelligence, the way you communicate, the way you incorporate your capital employed in decision making, in growing your business, that becomes a priority. So now you become a leader with proper priorities. Now you become a smart leader because it's not about you. And people forget that. Let me get back to Joseph. It was never about him. It was about the vision that he had and what he had to pursue to ensure that the storage rooms were full of grain when the drought came. And he did that through other people, not on his own. And he prioritized that at all times. So, but digging deeper into that, we can, but it's going to take a very long time if I really dig deep into that, because each of them is then interlinked with other aspects in the book,
Yes.
which is resource management, emotional intelligence, applying the basic human needs throughout leadership. It all forms part of that.
Yes. So Neil, one of the pitfalls that I see from my perspective, and I would love to have your opinion on it, because I've been doing a leadership, facilitating a session yesterday as well. And I think one of the pitfalls is that someone has the assumption that if I am appointed as a leader and I did a leadership course, that makes me a great leader. And it brings me back to what you've said in terms of the growth. It's, yes, as much as it is about growing the people around you, you have to consistently work on yourself to become better, to grow as a person, to become more emotionally intelligent. You cannot just, well, I think that's where people trip themselves up, because they want to learn how to become a better leader. But how can I tell them how to do what they need to do? How can I, manage the team better, etc.? What's your take on that?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because it comes back to the article that I wrote. And the question that I posed when I wrote the article is, are you a born leader or are you a cultivated leader? And you get people, youngsters that grows up in homes where there's strong leadership from a mother and a father, and they pick up some qualities or talents. I like to refer to them as talents, from that. And people will say, oh, but you're a good leader. So now they become confident in the fact that they are a good leader, and they leave it at that. Yes, you get people that goes and studies in universities, and you go through 1,000 different pages and books and lectures and stuff like that. Those are things that are taught to you, okay? It sits in your mind, but does it truly resonate with you? Cultivated leaders are those that never really found them at a young age in a place where they are exposed to good leadership. Once again, please don't get me wrong, I'm not generalizing, but but however, through life, they persevere. They make mistakes. They take a step back, they reflect, they grow. They have an event that led to conflict or misunderstanding. They go back, they reflect, they reset, they correct. And true, authentic leaders are generally the guys that it's got the most blue toes and broken nails and scuff marks on their knees, from with battle scars, because they've been there, they've done it, they've lived it, and they've learned so much more, because now it's really resonated deep within themselves, and they can consistently relate to that. Where other people that's in the classroom, like I said, it goes in, it sits with them, they try to apply it, they may not apply it, and they turn around and say, I have a leadership certificate, I am entitled to be in this position. And then just down the corridor, you have somebody that hasn't done that, but actually has the characteristic, the DNA of a leader because of the battle scars. You can teach somebody how to go into battle, to go into war. This is how you load your weapon. This is those kind of things. But he hasn't spent one day on the ground. And then you have the guy that's been on the ground that can actually teach those guys that actually has a certificate what leadership is about. So I have a lot of faith in the guys that my wife always says, I always back the underdog. Because it's generally the underdog. If you sit back and you observe and you listen, it's that underdog that's going to have that nugget that you actually need. That's just my viewpoint on that. Does that
And there's
help?
yes, and there's very real challenges, being a leader. Like there's the workload, and there's the economy, and there's so many things. And We spoke about yesterday, we spoke about integrity, for example, as one of the core values, for example, and in leadership. And there's real challenges in terms of, being in a leadership position and being expected to do certain things unethically. And I got the question, what do I do as a leader if I want, integrity is important to me, although I'm expected to do things that is unethical? What do they do? So I would love to have your answer or take on that.
You broke up there for a second. Can you just repeat that for
Oh,
me, please?
so the question was, if I'm in a leadership position and I value integrity, but I am expected from my manager to do something that is unethical, what does that leader do? That was my question yesterday from one of the participants, and I would love to have your perception on that.
Well, first of all, is you shouldn't really. I mean, first of all, if it's not sitting well in your gut,
Mm,
then you shouldn't even participate in entertaining that. You have policies and procedures in your company. First of all, is you've got a code of ethics and code of conduct. If anybody in a leadership position requires you to work outside of those parameters, they are in breach of the very same contract that they've put in place. So the correct decision is, and doesn't matter what the consequences
mm,
is to be steadfast in your belief and and don't participate in unethical business. If anybody then wants to pursue the matter further and it could possibly cost your career,
mm,
you should be going on your knees and say, thank you for showing me this, because of the fact is, do I really want to be associated and working in an organization that conducts business in an unethical manner?
mm.
No, you flock together with those with ethics.
Yes.
You don't, as a sheep, go and feed with pigs. You understand what I'm saying? That is, if somebody asks that question, that is amazing, because a lot of people don't ask that question. They just go
No.
with the mainstream flow. That is amazing. And my advice would be stand up.
Mm,
You have a code of ethics. You have a code of conduct. You have got procedures in your organization that will protect you at all times. And at the end of the day, as if it affects your income for the future, because the company's unethical behavior could lead to the company
mm.
not achieving what they want to achieve. They're affecting your bottom line, because as an employer of a company, I'm an investor in the company. I invest my time for that company to give me returns in form of my salary. I
Mm.
will not deal with an unethical investor that handles my portfolio. Why should it be any different?
Yes. I think you touched on something very important. It's that fear of the consequence. What if I get fired, or what's the consequence going to be? So most people, they stay quiet and they don't know how to navigate that, although it's going against their moral values within themselves, because of that fear.
It comes back to Joseph.
Mm,
When Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him, okay, he was living happily. Tried to seduce him. He was steadfast and said he will not do that. Yes, he was imprisoned.
mm,
Um, but be steadfast. I'll rather be able to lay my head down on my pillow tonight knowing that I was ethical today. And
yes.
again, yes, if they want to fire you, you still have a leg to stand on. It's the law.
Mm,
There is things that protects you. But even if it's not something that protects you, it is so important to just be ethical and truthful at all times.
mm,
It doesn't help. It's going to catch
mm,
up with you at some point in time. And it's not like you're going to get a promotion by being
yes.
unethical. You might just find yourself 6 months from now worked out of the company because there's no income coming into the company because of unethical behavior.
Mm.
It would be
I
nice
love.
if more people in South Africa could take heed of that. And I'm referring to the upper echelons of the country, because sadly, I think for the last 30 odd years, we've built a country that's, without going political, a country that has been built on some of those ethics and models not being in place. And I think when something runs from the top down, it's very easy to look the other way and go, oh, well, they can do it, so can I. And I would argue that everything you've said is 100% correct. And going down the slippery road of not having those values and morals and ethics and integrity is, to be quite blunt, what has led South Africa to be where it is. And I think if we were to address those small issues, because they are generally small issues at the beginning, it's little things, looking the other way when you shouldn't, doing something where you know, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway, paying a bribe when you're caught and you've had a couple of drinks at the pub, jumping a stop street, if we're using the roads as an analogy. I've always said that in any country, the roads and how people drive gives you a very accurate picture of that society. And I think
Yeah.
everything that you have said at the moment speaks to, sadly, a lot of people in many positions not having those ethics and morals. And I just want to flag that I think, as noble as it is for us to talk about it, I think in the real world, where you are collecting a paycheck, as so many people are at the end of the month, and you are reliant on that paycheck, I think it can be extremely challenging to look the other way.
No, no, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. You know, in a perfect world, yes, it'll be fantastic. Um, uh, and you know, funny enough, is one of my friends who read the book before I published it said exactly the same thing you've just said now. When it comes to ethical behavior and reconciliation and combining multicultural working environments. Yes, it's difficult, and I know that with the unemployment rate the way it is in South Africa, that's a lot of people will say that's just a dream. Um, but maybe we're having issues with unemployment and the state that we find ourselves in because of a compound effect of unethical behavior that's been coming for many years. And and it's just been becoming a culture. The sooner we can do that shift, the sooner we can start developing something wonderful. In fact, magnificent. Um, uh, but yes, it is a dream. But then again, Joseph also had a dream. Um, uh, Maybe we should just be patiently, consistently start influencing those around us by that viewpoint, and it could exponentially grow in other people's minds.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. It's definitely a mental and emotional change that's necessary. And people are broken, so there's a lot of wounds, and people speak from their wounds.
Mm.
And I love that you said the way that you explained the analogy of, well, it's not even an analogy, it's a fact that I'm investing in your company, so I'm worth to myself and to the company, and that's what people need to bear in mind when it comes to scared of blowing the whistle. Your talent and your skill is what got you there.
Mm.
So it can get you somewhere else, even in a better place. So that should be viewed as a challenge to do introspection and trust in the process of integrity.
Yep. There's if you lead from the basis of integrity, what happens with your personality? Your personality becomes that of a leader with strong emotional intelligence, with with perseverance, with taking to account basic human needs, because you actually understand what the impact is of your behavior on those around you. So your foundation of purity and honesty and integrity becomes your walking stick every day. It becomes your lantern, your torch. You know, when you go running, Paul, early morning runnings, and you've got that headlamp on, that's your integrity, that's your purity, that lights up the road ahead. If you don't have it on, especially if you're running in Pretoria and the jacaranda roots comes through the tar, you quickly fall flat on your face. So failing in your own integrity has got far more detriment on you, your future, and those around you than you can ever believe.
True.
Niel, for the sake of wrapping up, I think we could chat to you for hours, and unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of that time. Your 12 chapters in the book are concluded. In chapter 12, you talk about legacy. What are your hopes and dreams for the legacy of this book?
Personally, things like we've just chatted about, for the content to really resonate and to make a shift in people's behavior, the manner in which we treat other people, the manner in which we lead, and for the book to be an important tool in bringing the change that we need in our organizations, in our countries, in our communities, in our churches, to get people to make a massive shift. That is a big thing. And you know what's also, I just want another part on the book. Each chapter has got a very interesting thing in it. At the end of each chapter, there's a 30-day implementation, 90 days, and 12 months implementation. So this book actually helps you developing habits, behaviors, and create structures within your life. So it's impacting your life, it's impacting your business, it's impacting your community. And I want leaders to start wearing one cap. We have leaders in positions that has his corporate cap, then he gets into his car, he puts his home cap, and then he goes to the golf course, he puts his golf cap, different caps, and they lead from different sides. If you're a leader, you lead with one cap. The way you lead at home, you lead at work. The way you lead at work, you lead at home.
Yeah.
So save your energy. Stop wasting it on being too many leaders in different places with different caps. This book is meant for those guys to start developing the personality, the embedded personality to be one leader consistently and save your energy.
Sure. Thank you.
Very insightful, Niel. And it sounds as if it's been quite a journey for you writing the book, and hopefully that journey will be lived in some part through those who read Pit to the Palace. On a final note, where can we find you, follow you, and get to find out more about what you're doing?
I am on LinkedIn, just under Daniel, obviously, which is my book, and then just on Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, that's it.
Wonderful.
And
I would imagine
on Instagram and Facebook, it's under Niel Thiart, NIEL THIRT. My website is reflectioncoaching.co.za. And the website for the book is pit with the number 2, thepalace.org.
Pit number 2, thepalace.org. Fantastic. And that is ancient wisdom for modern visionary leaders. I think a very interesting book, a great read by the sound of things. And we're so grateful, Niel, that you took the time to join us and give up your 45 minutes or so to be a part of this edition of the Coaching Hour. So thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, and your book with us. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and God bless.
Thank you. Mary, Mareka, thank you as always. And to you for watching or listening to this, thank you so much for being a part of this community. It's a community where one small step at a time, we believe that we can effect change. I think Niel has echoed that quite strongly in today's podcast. Big changes generally come about from very small steps initially. And the more we're able to do that, hopefully the better our society can become, not just here in South Africa, but around the world. And if we are a part of that process, then, well, it's a wonderful pleasure to be here doing what we do. So thank you so much for watching and listening to this podcast. I'm Paul Rotherham, and we'll look forward to your company in the next one. Bye-bye for now.